like to welcome everybody to the Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals. I do have a notice that I have to read, a public notice. Notice is hereby given that the Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, starting at 7 p.m. by Zoom remote in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law. Please be advised that the meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Mass Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread, and all town facilities are currently closed to the public except by appointment. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live through local access cable on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. It will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. To participate remotely from a computer, you would use the link join Zoom meeting, https://us02 web.zoom.us/j/81688366386. And the meeting ID is 816-8836-6386. The Lunenburg zoning will hear the petition of Paul C. Foley, receiver, 370 Main Street, Suite 800, Worcester, Mass. 01608, and 305 Realty LLC, 305 Leominster Shirley Road, Lunenburg, Mass. 01462. The property which is the subject of this case is located at 305 Leominster Shirley Road, Lunenburg, Mass. Assessors map 145.2. If you have not, there will also be a second hearing. The second hearing will be for the petition of EF Realty LLC, 654 Elm Street, Leominster, Mass. The property which is the subject of that case is located at 711 Mass Ave, Lunenburg, Mass. 01462. And the petition is hereby makes application for a special permit for the construction of townhouses at 711 Mass Ave. And I will let Lisa read the rest when she reads the petition. If you have not registered with Zoom, you will be asked for your name and an email address. No participant ID is needed. Just press the pound when asked. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting, and computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. And with that, I would like to take a roll call and introduce the board. Lisa Normandin is the board secretary. James Bezakowski.
Here.
Hans Winthrop.
Here.
David Blatt.
Here.
Patrick Callahan.
Here.
And I am Alfred Gravel. The way the hearing will proceed is Lisa will read the application and any other submitted communications. The applicant will have the opportunity for comments on the application or submission of additional documents. If you would like to speak, give your name and address. Board members will have the opportunity to ask questions that they might have on the application while you are at the mic. There will be a public comment period. You will please address all comments and questions to the board. And the board will go into deliberation, and there are certain requirements for a special permit. And I will let Lisa read those when she reads the petition. And with that, I would invite Lisa to please read the first petition.
Thank you, Al. This is an application for a special permit, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, Zoning Board of Appeals. The name and address of the applicant is Paul C. Foley, receiver, 370 Main Street, Suite 800, Worcester, Mass. and 305 Realty LLC, 305 Leominster Shirley Road in Lunenburg. The undersigned hereby makes application for special permit as follows. 1, for a contractor's yard, special permit -Z, use table 4.1 L6. 2, outside and inside storage of heavy equipment and CDL class trucks and automobiles. SPZ 250 4.5A5A3. Number 3, repairs and maintenance of heavy equipment and CDL class trucks and automobiles. Number 4, outside and inside storage of construction materials of all kinds. Requires special permit -Z would default to contractor's yard. 5, outside and inside storage of landscape equipment and materials. SP-Z would default to contractor yard. Number 6, office building to be used as the main office and headquarters for GVC Construction, Inc. Requires SP-Z would default to contractor's yard. An application for the same dated August 10th, 2020 was submitted to the building inspector and was denied by the same for the reasons stated in the letter attached hereto. The proposed action has not begun. The street address of the property is 305 Leominster Shirley Road in Lunenburg, assesses map 145, parcel 2. The name and address of legal holder to the title of the land, which is Paul C. Foley, receiver, 370 Main Street in Worcester. And the deed is recorded in Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds, book 9626, page 198, and recorded May 29th of 2020. The special permit questions and answers are as follows. A, will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? Proposed action will not be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons. Response, the applicant intends to use the property as a contractor's yard for a well-established commercial construction company. The premises is situated between 2 long-standing and well-known industrial uses. Any and all fuel or oil products for the equipment used in conjunction with the commercial construction company shall be stored in accordance with the applicable fire protection codes. The premises are serviced by an on-site Title V septic system that is in compliance. There are no anticipated impacts on traffic. B, will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of lands and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? The reply, the applicant, 305 Realty LLC, is in the process of securing financing for the acquisition of the premises and to make improvements to the premises. Premises have been vacant for approximately 2 years. As part of the financing arrangements in process of 305 Realty LLC, funds will be allocated for the rehabilitation of property and fit up for the needs of the commercial construction company. Will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and tightliness of an open use? And the answer was not applicable. B, will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amount clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? Says C, response 12A. The premises are situated between 2 long-standing and well-known industrial uses. Based on the current levels of activity by the commercial construction company there, that activity is not expected to produce noise, vibration, dust, or odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property. The following information is provided because it is considered important to this case. The premises is currently under receivership pursuant to an order issued by the United States District Court, State of Massachusetts, Civil Action Number 16 CV 4103 TSH Paul C. Foley, receiver, hereinafter the receiver. The applicant, 305 LLC, is the assignee of a purchase and sales agreement for the premises with the receiver as the seller. Pursuant to the terms of the purchase and sales, there are contingencies in relation to the completion of the sale, including but not limited to the issuance of the special permit requested under this application. And that's signed the 29th day of January 2021 by Paul Foley, Esquire, receiver, and Christopher Valente of 305 LLC, manager. There is a letter from the building inspector that I'll read quickly. I've reviewed the application, have the following comments. The property in question is parcel ID 145-2, listed as 305 Leominster Shirley Road. It is in the commercial district. Building is currently being used as a lumber yard. The proposed 6 uses as outlined in the submitted application include a contractor's yard, outside and inside storage of heavy equipment, and CDL class trucks, automobiles. And the requirements are all listed under the sections of the statute. 3, repairs and maintenance of heavy equipment and CDL class trucks and automobiles. 4, outside and inside storage of construction materials of all kinds. 5, outside and inside storage of landscape equipment and materials would default to contractor's yard or both. 6, office building to be used as main office and headquarters for DVC. The granting of the special permit through the zoning board of appeals would also require site plan approval be performed by the planning board. There is also a site plan of the property and a list of abutters. And I just have the following brief comments from other departments. Adam Burney, our land use director, said the property would require site plan approval from the planning board if the ZBA grants the requested special permit. And he left his contact information. James Gorfie from the Lunenburg Board of Health said they need more information regarding the potential use of the site, but has the following general comments. Proposed use must not exceed the capacity of the on-site sewage disposal system. 2, the site is served by a private well. No more than 24 individuals can work on site unless the site has an approved public water supply. 3, only sanitary sewage can be discharged into the sewage disposal system. Floor drains for maintenance/repair buildings must be discharged to an industrial waste holding tank. 4, the applicant will need to provide a list of materials to be stored on site. And 5, the activities on site can't create dust, noise, or odors which would cause a condition of air pollution as defined by 310 CMR 7.00. There are outstanding real estate and personal property due on the property according to the tax collector. The conservation requires no action as long as there is no site work, and the fire department approval is subject to fire protection system review by architect or fire protection engineer. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And with that, I would invite the applicant, if he would like to add anything or submit anything new. Okay.
Yep.
You're on mute.
I think I'm unmuted now. Can everybody hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Attorney Jeffrey Avini. I represent 305 Realty LLC, which is the assignee of a purchase and sale agreement, which may be helpful for clarification. Attorney Foley is the receiver, so he holds the property under an order and now under a deed from the federal court. Under the purchase and sale agreement, it's my client's obligation as part of the contingencies in the P&S to get the special permit. So Mr. Foley is not going to participate in the hearing because, again, he's the holder of the property for the federal court. Once we get through this process, we're going to do a closing and 305 Realty LLC is going to own the property. I don't have much to add. I think it's a fairly straightforward application. The property was used for a good period of time by Turnkey Lumber, and I think some of the uses was consistent with what we're asking for, but they didn't have the special permit. Again, GVC is a long-standing commercial construction company. They've been in existence for 20 years. They're somewhat of a transient operation. They have a main office where their operations are headquarters. They're going to store equipment on this site. And what they will do is they'll load up each day and go to various sites in the Commonwealth and in New Hampshire. They do government projects. I had sent Lisa a copy of their outline as far as what the corporation actually does. I don't know if that'll be beneficial to the board or not. But again, I think it's a fairly straightforward special permit application. If you go to the site, it is actually very well suited for this kind of a enterprise. I've been there several times. I've driven by several times. You've got Keating on the right-hand side. You've got a retail kind of shop, to the left on a little bit to the left. Then you got Powell's farther down the street. So there's really not going to be any change in the aesthetics. It's really kind of a commercial, industrial type strip. That road is pretty heavily traveled, but I don't think we're going to impact anything on traffic. You know, we're talking again about transient traffic on and off the site for them to go out to their job sites.
Okay. Could you just go through some of the stuff as far as materials, inside storage, outside storage, as far as maintenance on the property of equipment?
Where would you, as far as where would you like to start for materials? Because depending on what projects they're working on, the materials will be stored outside in a neat and orderly fashion, and some may be stored inside in what's a kind of a large warehouse. And they're for the most part construction materials. We're talking about piping, different types, some block, those kind of materials that would be left at the site and then left at this location and brought to the various job sites. As far as maintenance, my client is in the process of coming up with a budget, allocating funds. There is some work to be done on what I'm going to call the office building, which is the smaller building to the left. The warehouse, it was relatively new construction. It's probably less than 6 years old. I mean, it needs some work, but as far as overall maintenance, the main focus will be on the office building, which does need, I wouldn't say a considerable amount of work, clean up aesthetics. There is going to be some renovations inside so that my client can make it fit for what their needs are.
So would most of the actual equipment be stored inside the large barn, I'll call it?
I think it's going to depend on the circumstances, Mr. Chairman. I mean, there is quite a bit of space there. They can park the equipment, more towards the back of the lot, so you can't see it from the street. There's a fairly narrow opening, so the public driving by or what have you really can't see into the lot that well. There is a gate there. We intend to maintain the gate for not only for security reasons, but for some obvious reasons. So for the most part, if they may be working on some equipment, they may be stored inside. So depending on the season and what, the particular jobs are, where equipment will be parked, may vary.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll open up the questions that the board may have. Does any board member have any questions? Dave?
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Is there, it keeps talking about moving back to a contractor yard. Is there any plans to do any kind of sales or anything like that from this property?
No, no retail sales.
Okay. And the other question is hours of operation.
Well, the hours of operation is kind of a unique situation. If you're familiar with anyone that does prevailing wage work, both on the federal and state level, there's mandates that the work be done at night. Mr. Valenti, he's actually with us tonight, maybe he'll comment on this a little bit deeper, but my experience, I've done quite a few of these type projects. If they're going to work at night, they do it in stages. And again, where we're located, if you Google Earthed it, or even just drove around, I can't even locate a single family dwelling anywhere on my Google Earth screen that was in reasonable distance to this property. There's just no real residential component that I think we have to worry about disturbing. That being said, again, a lot of what these companies do, if they have to be out at a site, say at 11 p.m., because I don't know if you ever noticed, if you go down Route 2,
right,
sometimes you'll see them doing work at 11 o'clock. Well, depending on what shift these guys are working, a lot of times they'll load up the equipment, when they're wrapping up at 5, and then when they come in, they're just taking the equipment and moving it out. They're not going to be reloading stuff. They do it because A, it's safer to load and unload the equipment during the daytime when it's light out, and B, it just makes an easier transition depending on how you're working your shifts. So to answer your question, we can't commit to say we're going to have regular hours of operation because the nature of this business is they work all over the Commonwealth. They do prevailing wage jobs both on the federal and state side, and they are required to work at night.
Okay. So I guess the question was more of if that's the case, where I'm looking at it as the trucks would probably not be rolling during rush hour. is what my question is, just to added traffic in that busy intersection and things. And that's the reason for my question.
I guess it's all how you define rush hour. I mean, I've driven down that road several times. That's a busy road. I mean, I think it's fairly busy all the time. So I guess the real question is, are we going to impact it anymore? And I think the answer is no.
Okay, that was the question. That's
fair enough.
Okay. I'm all set. Yep.
Thank you, David. Any other questions from any other board member?
Chairman, I have a question. I just, it's more probably to the board, but I'll ask the applicant. You mentioned, I think in one of your responses that you're going to acquire additional pieces of property adjacent to the property in question. Is that why we have Exhibit B? And I was looking at the plot plans and I'm trying to figure out, is it that the piece of parcel that you're thinking of acquiring, is it behind the existing building, the existing plot plan?
It's a great question. This is kind of a unique property for a lot of different reasons that we don't need to talk about. But this property is in the commercial district and the abutting properties in the industrial districts. So this property is sandwiched in, it's the only real commercial zone property on this street because Keating's industrial and the Powell side's industrial. So one of the issues we have is, and it goes back to when we negotiated the PNS, is representations were made at a certain level that there was more land to be acquired when we were going through the negotiations. And then when we started doing our due diligence, we came down to find out that it wasn't the land area that we were told it was. So in an effort to make the project work, we reached out to the abutter and asked if we can purchase those parcels, and it would make the project more feasible in the total scale for the client, for the buyer. So to answer your question, kind of not in a roundabout way, we thought we were buying a certain piece, and then when we did our due diligence, we found out, well, that's not there. We need the rest of this to make the whole project work. And again, what's unique is what we're buying through the receiver is zoned commercial, where the surrounding properties is zoned industrial.
Okay. Thank you.
Nope, no problem.
Thank you, Hon. Any other questions from any board member?
Mr. Chairman, I have one last question, and it's related to the applicant's response to our question letters, number C. Will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sightliness if in open use? I'm assuming some of that's going to be in open use, but I have to assume that, I think if I remember correctly, when we've granted contractor yards, that there are conditions on there to keep it orderly.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to jump the chairman, but that's a pretty standard condition that it's got to be an orderly site. You can't produce an excess noise.
You'd be surprised how many contractor yards can get out of control, and then they have to come back before the board, and we have, unfortunately.
But I think, again, this is a little different because this company is more of a kind of a transient, operation. Again, there's going to be equipment there stored. For the most part, there's not really going to be any work on site. It's going to be mostly, off site where they're going to different job locations.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Are there any conditions you were thinking of, Hans, you would like to add?
No, I just want to make sure with listen, I'm going to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, contractor yards can get a little crazy and out of control if there aren't conditions on it. But I know, obviously, I've driven by the site and I know exactly where this is, and it's a pretty big yard. So,
yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
I don't see any hands raised and nobody in the waiting room.
Okay. So with that, then I would ask for a motion.
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit as written.
Should we, the comments that Lisa added at the end, there's a series of 5 conditions that have to be met, I believe.
The
Lisa?
fire department and the Board of Health and those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put our standard that they have to comply with all of the.
Yeah, folks, there's a couple issues we have to work out with the Board of Health. They're not real issues. I think it's more of a documentation. That's the same thing with the fire department. I had a conversation with the DPW director. He was okay with it. I've had a couple of conversations with the building commissioner. I think we're, for the most part, all on the same page. It's some pretty standard things that the Board of Health is looking for and the fire department is looking for that's going to get, vetted out during the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion then.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so I will ask for a roll call vote on this.
Aye.
James, Hans,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and I say aye. So with that, the special permit is granted. I do have post-decision instructions I have to read to you. The special permit is granted with the contingency that the petitioner complies with all licenses, regulations, statutes, and ordinances of any and all applicable local, state, and federal boards or agencies with jurisdiction over the premises. The special permit is subject to periodic review by the permit granting authority or the enforcement officer. To ensure compliance with any conditions, non-compliance to such conditions may result in revocation of this permit. A copy of the board's decision shall be filed with the town clerk within 14 days. Any party aggrieved by the board's decision may appeal to Superior Court 20 days after the decision is filed within the town clerk. After certification by the town clerk that 20 days have elapsed since the decision was filed, you should have it recorded in the Registry of Deeds. No special permit shall take effect until it has been recorded, and the special permit shall lapse within 2 years unless substantial use or construction has commenced. And with that, we wish you good luck with your construction. Yeah.
Good luck.
Gentlemen, much appreciated. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
If you need anything else from me, I'm going to sign off.
Okay. I think,
Timing.
well, we can go right into the next hearing, as I have already announced that there would be 2 tonight. And we're not assigning times anymore. We're just going to continue.
Want me to go ahead?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
This is an application for a special permit, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, Zoning Board of Appeals. Name and address of each applicant: EF Realty LLC, 654 Elm Street, Leominster, Mass. The undersigned makes application as follows. A special permit is being sought for the construction of townhouses at 711 Massachusetts Avenue per Section 254.1H6 of the Town of Lunenburg zoning bylaws. The project site is in the Residence A zoning district and limited business residential zoning districts. The building inspector's letter dated January 20th, 2021 is attached in the application. The proposed action has not begun. The basis for this application is found in the following section of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw, Section 254.1H6. Street address of the property is 711 Massachusetts Avenue. Assesses map 59, parcel 30. Name and address of each holder of legal title to the land, which is the subject of this case, is EF Realty LLC, 654 Elm Street, Leominster, Mass. And the deed is recorded in Worcester Northern District, Registry of Deeds, book 9140, page 357, and recorded 8/14/2018. Whitman and Bingham has attached a letter to the application. Dear board members, On behalf of our client, EF Realty LLC, Whitman and Bingham and Associates LLC respectfully submits the following additional information as part of a variance application. A, will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? The reply, the proposal includes the construction of 2 4-unit townhouse buildings totaling 8 units, which will be serviced by a 24-foot wide paved driveway off Massachusetts Avenue west of Chestnut Street. Massachusetts Avenue is capable of handling the increase in traffic due to the project. The project will not be injurious or dangerous to the public health or be a danger of fire or explosions. B, will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? The reply, proposed use of the project as townhouses will not have an adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood, as the use is consistent with the surrounding mixed uses of single-family homes, businesses, and large townhouse developments near the project. C, will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sightliness if an open use? The reply, the proposal does not include an open use as the project consists of residential townhouses. D, will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? The reply, the noise, vibration, dust, and odor created during the construction phase of the project will be mitigated as necessary and will not have a detrimental impact on adjacent property. The project is not expected to create any vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare after construction is completed. The noise of the project site after the completion of the construction will be consistent to residential developments and not be detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property. I hope this information is helpful. If you should have any questions or require any additional information regarding this or any other matter, please do not hesitate to contact me at this office. And it's signed by Wesley R. Fliss, project engineer of Whitman and Bingham Associates, LLC. And the application is signed the 28th day of January by Eric Fowler of 654 Elm Street, Leominster. The building inspector memo is attached, and I shall read it. The subject is 711 Mass Ave proposed townhouse project determination letter. I have reviewed the proposal and have the following comments. The property is currently an undeveloped 4.452 acre parcel of land in the limited business/residential district. The proposal is 2 townhouse structures on one lot with 1 common driveway serving both structures. It is my opinion as the zoning officer that this use in this district requires a special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals under section 254.1G, use table 4.1H6. In addition, under section 258.4B5, site plan is required. Lastly, 2 dwellings on 1 lot can be allowed only if approved by the planning board under section 250-3.4. And there is a list of abutters attached and a copy of the plans, Mr. Chairman. And that's all. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a few memos from other departments. From the planning board. Applicant will have to apply to the planning board for site plan review under chapter 258.4 and stormwater permit under chapter 204 of the Code of Lunenburg. The DPW has no comment on the proposed use. However, additional detail, rim and invert elevations, etc., for the sewer construction should be provided on plans submitted for site plan review. Mass DOT permits will be required for both access and utility connections, and that's from the DPW director, Rob Oliver. Matt Morrow indicated that a notice of intent must be filed with the Lunenburg Conservation Commission. And from the sewer department, the memo says this site has access to sewer and was previously assessed for 3 units. Due to the plan for construction of 8 units, proponent will need to submit large project application to the commission with proposed flows and additional privilege fees will be due. Applicant will need to come before the sewer commission for approval for the increased usage. And I think the applicant was aware of all those facts, but I'm reading them for the record. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And with that, I would invite the applicant or representative to, if you would like to speak to the issue.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jamie Rowe, and I'm employed by the firm of Whitman and Bingham Associates. And my client this evening is EF Realty LLC out of Leominster, Mass. And Mr. Eric Fowler is here as well. And you feel free to ask myself or Mr. Fowler any questions throughout the whole process. We're giving a presentation. Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, to allow me to share the screen so I can put some exhibits on so we can discuss the project?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think it has to be enabled.
Yep. See. Allowed to. People. Who can share? All participants. Who can share when someone else is sharing? All right. Should we good now? Try that again.
Okay. Fantastic.
There we are. Sorry about that.
Nope. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, we're here this evening because we applied for a special, submitted an application for a special permit for the townhouse use within the Residence A and/or limited business residential zoning districts. The zoning opinion issued by the building inspector dated January 20th, 2021 outlines a very specific section within your zoning, and it's highlighted in yellow. I'll zoom in a little bit. Under the use table in the zoning ordinance of the town of Lunenburg, section 4.1H6, if you're going to do a townhouse style structure, a special permit by the zoning board of appeals is required in all zoning districts. And that's why we're here to get the use of a townhouse approved. The location of the site is 711 Massachusetts Avenue, map 59, parcel 30. The lot area of this lot highlighted in yellow is 4.45 acres, and it has a frontage of 399.60 feet. It has a front yard setback for any structure of 40 feet, a side yard setback of 15 feet, and a rear yard setback of 20 feet. All proposed structures on the site plan that was submitted meet these requirements. We have the quitclaim deed in the ownership of EF Realty, and the lot that was created was a lot shown on a plan dated May 21st, 2004, endorsed by the planning board in June of 2004, and recorded at the Registry of Deeds and Plan Book 446, Plan 12. This land was all owned, this lot 4, this lot 3, and the remaining land was all owned by the Patton family, and it was all subdivided into 3 separate lots. And to date, all 3 separate lots have been sold. Prior to submitting the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals, I myself met with I call it the Development Review Board, and it's all the department heads within the town of Lunenburg. We had a roundtable discussion with the planner, the DPW director, fire representative, police representative, conservation commission representative, etc. And we went over the concept development plan that we're discussing this evening. See if I can. Having a little trouble with the bar at top. It's not allowing me to connect with the plans. So let's do this. Anybody have any experience in moving the the bar around. There we go. So this is the plan we submitted at the Development Review Board meeting, where we showed them exactly what we submitted to you in some preliminary conceptual form. And we went over the entire project. And the comments that came back from the Development Review Board, all department heads, is they did not have an issue with the use, but they identified some of the site characteristics that we're going to have to incorporate in our plan. There's an existing stream here that Mr. Morrow talked about, and he made sure that we determined this to be a perennial stream, flows year round. Therefore, certain regulations are kicked in, such as the Rivers Protection Act. We do know, we were informed at that time we need a stormwater permit. We were informed at that point we need a DOT permit. Some of these comments are on the comments that were submitted to the ZBA by the department heads. The buildings need to be all fire rated and sprinkled. The project will be subject to construction control. And what that means is there's going to have to be an architect that's going to be inspecting these buildings throughout the entire construction process. And they're going to have to submit construction control affidavits to the building inspector that all construction meets the building code prior to occupancy. The water district wanted to have separate water services for each unit. Same thing with sewer. And each unit was going to be required to have a separate house number. We're proposing 2 buildings. Each building is going to have the dimensions of 120 feet lengthwise and 52 feet deep. That's going to give you a total square footage of each building of 6,240, which is going to give you 1,560 square feet per unit, separate unit. Each building is going to have 4 units, and you can see the configuration in gray here. This is going to be the main maneuvering aisle, 1 curb cut into the site, and there'll be a left driveway here, and then there'll be a driveway going back to the back building. There's going to be garages here and here for 2 units, here and here for 2 units. Each building is identical. And we're going to have 2 residential parking spaces per unit and 1 space dedicated for a visitor per unit. That's going to give us a total of 4, 8, 12 parking spaces per building. When we met with the Development Review Board and discussed the utilities, one of the important things to the department heads was they wanted to have a water main coming into the property. So we have a proposed 6-inch cement line, ductile iron water main coming in. We're going to put a fire hydrant at the very end for fire protection. That was going to be required by the fire department. And then we're going to have new water services going into each building. Now we show 1 right now. And so if we're lucky enough to get a special permit this evening for the townhouse use, we'll be going to site plan approval with the planning board, and the water department and the sewer department are then going to decide whether or not they want 1 service coming into the building or 4 separate services, and they'll let us know at that time. The sewer, same thing. We have a sewer main within Massachusetts Avenue. We're going to put a doghouse manhole over the existing main and come into the site with a new 8-inch PVC sewer main. And then we're going to tap off of that new sewer main with a 6-inch service coming into each building. And it'll be the decision of the sewer department at that time whether they want 4 or 1 going into each building. It doesn't matter to us either way. They both work. In fact, we've done projects where the sewer department has required 4 services and other towns require 1. It's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. With respect to stormwater management, we've taken care of the stormwater management of the site where we have low impact water quality swales. They're outlined in green. All the runoff is going to go into the swales here and here, and then flow right into a detention basin where it'll collect the water. We'll have a stone wick right here that will leach the water back into the groundwater. And whatever it doesn't handle, it's going to exit over an emergency spillway and a couple of pipes right here discharging into a riprap pad. There's a lot of buffer zones associated with this site. And if you're not making presentations and attending Conservation Commission meetings on a regular basis, I think I should explain them to all of you so you fully understand it. We have a perennial stream, Catacootamung Brook, colored in a dark blue, and we have a light blue edge of bordering vegetated wetland shown on the property itself. Associated with the bordering vegetated wetland, the town of Lunenburg bylaws have a 30-foot offset from the bordering vegetated wetland, and they call that the 30-foot no disturbance zone. So no work can be done within 30 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland, and no work is being proposed on this site within 30 feet. You then offset that same bordering vegetated wetland 50 feet, and that's called the no build zone. So although you're allowed to do work within the 50-foot no build zone, you're not allowed to put any new building structure in the 50-foot no build zone. And both buildings are located out of the 50-foot buffer zone. Then you offset the same bordering vegetated wetland 100 feet. That's called the 100-foot buffer zone. And that is the limit of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So any work within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland, we have to file a notice of intent. And that was one of Matt Morrow's comments to the board, is he is requiring us to file a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. Then we have the Rivers Protection Act, and there's two offsets associated with the Rivers Protection Act. The first offset is from the brook itself, 100 feet away. They call that the 100-foot inner riparian zone, and no building or pavement can be located within that zone, just stormwater management structures. And we have the detention basin partially located in that zone, which is allowed. We take that same edge of brook, we offset it 200 feet, and that's called the 200 outer riparian zone. And we're allowed to do work within this zone, but only disturb 10% of the total 200-foot riparian zone area within our 4.45 acre lot. And we are under 10% of the entire lot itself. We fully know and understand and agree with, we'll be filing plans with the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board for site plan approval, and there's also a requirement when you have more than two buildings on the same lot, the Planning Board has to approve that use as well. So we also know, based upon the comments of the Development Review Board and the DPW Director, will be asking for a DOT permit as well for the curb cut located off of Mass Ave. Originally, when we submitted the concept plan to the Development Review Board, we had two curb cuts proposed. They requested one, and I think it's a better design. And that's why we have one maneuvering aisle coming in, and then we have two driveways coming off of that as well. So that said, I am happy to answer any questions you have for this development.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions then, because one thing we don't know what they're going to finally end up with, whether it's two buildings, one building. As you know, you said the planning board has to make that decision. That's their decision. So the way it is proposed with the two buildings, you are not going to need any relief from zoning whatsoever.
Correct. So I apologize for the letter that was submitted to the board in the very beginning. it said that this is on behalf of our client, EF Realty LLC, Whitman and Bingham respectfully submits the following additional information as part of a variance application. We're not asking for any zoning relief as part of a variance application, just a special permit. So all structures will conform to the dimensional requirements of the zoning code, correct?
Okay. I'm just looking at that, the structure itself, the first one, you'd say that, and I can't really read it, that's, what, 43 feet?
Correct. Yeah, off of the front yard setback.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, what did you say the other, I can see some, not the corner of the building, but you got some like little L-shaped, what are those on the plan?
The L-shaped, right
Is
here.
that part of the structure or is that not?
You talking about right here?
No, up, near the building
Yeah.
itself, yeah, those
Oh,
right.
these, right?
Yeah.
So those are walkways
Oh,
that are
those
proposed to the front door of each unit. So there'll be 4 units. So 4 walkways.
Okay, and you're gonna have 12, what'd you say, parking spots? No,
Correct. So I'll show you where they are. You should have full copies of the plans, but I will show you on this plan. So each bump out opposite each building, here and here, you'll have 4 spots. These access pavement areas go into a garage, 2 garage doors, 1 for each separate unit. So a vehicle can park in the garage, that'd be 1. A vehicle can park outside the garage, that's 2. And then this would be a visitor parking spot for that unit. And that's the same for each unit, all 8 units.
okay. I would, at this point, open it up to the board for any questions that they may have.
I had one question about the lower parking area and its proximity to the Mass Ave, right where his arrow is.
Yeah,
Seems that corner is awfully close to Mass Ave. Is it? Here's only about 12 feet from the road.
so it's a little close, it's more like 10 feet from the edge of pavement, but the edge of the parking area is definitely located on this 4.45 acre lot. It's not located within the right of way of Mass Ave. And, if required, part of site plan approval will be a landscape plan. And we did plan on doing some vegetative screening between the parking and the layout line of Mass Ave.
So in other words, there would be a hedge of sorts blocking any view of the parking spaces or any potential lights from shining onto Route 2.
Yeah, so the hedges would be very small, not very tall, and it would be a landscaped strip opposite this parking area. With respect to the lighting, any lighting that we would propose would be dark sky compliant. It would shine down, not shine up or out. So it
But-
wouldn't shine.
But the
Go ahead.
parkers would not be able to shine their lights onto the street itself.
Correct. That's why we're putting a vegetative strip here. So if they come in at night and they come in like this, the lights would be pointing towards Mass Ave. And then the vegetative screen right here would block that light completely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question on that. I think that under section 250, 4.4, that under the limited business residential district, hold on 1 minute. All parking shall be off-street, shall not be located within the required setback of the principal building or in the area approved by the site plan review.
So we went over that with the development review board. And they basically, the planning board basically can approve the layout of the parking within the lot under site plan review. That's what we were told. If in fact the parking here for this for the residential project can't be located within the front yard setback, all of this couldn't be proposed. And that's exactly what they asked for. We did have that conversation.
Okay.
That seems like it's awfully close to Route 2, and I don't think you can, I mean, Route 2A, I don't think you can really stop all the lights from shining in as people pull into their spaces from glaring out onto the road.
Yeah,
And then
well,
more dangerous corners on Route 2A and the whole town of Lunenburg.
yeah, so vegetative strip was discussed, and we have no problem putting a vegetative strip along the sideline of the right-of-way, so it does block light. If you do not think that the vegetative strip would be enough, we'd be happy to put a small fence there as well, so there would be a complete block. That would be acceptable as well.
In my mind, I think that would be better than, because it is a bad corner.
Yep,
It's on a rise. It's not level. It's not in a valley. It's on a rise up and from both directions. So you're going to get glare no matter what happens in that corner, in that area, in my mind.
yeah. So the elevation of Mass Ave opposite that parking area you're referring to, the elevation is 538, and the parking area is elevated 2 feet. So it'll be 2 feet above the edge of pavement in that specific area. So a 4 to 5 foot fence would cover that completely. I always prefer a living fence, some sort of vegetative strip. It's always preferable to me. But quite frankly, if a solid fence is a better fit for the ZBA and the planning board, happy to do that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Jim's done.
Did you have a follow-up, Jim?
No, I think in my mind, I'm not really sure whether I'd want a solid fence or, a higher living fence, I know it takes time for the trees to grow up, but that is a very dangerous curve. From what I remember, it used to be called one of the dead man curves in Lunenburg. This was, 40 years ago. The speed limit is reduced down to 30 or lower in that area too. So it's something that has to be considered. Do you have to go before the, I know you have to go about for a curb cut, but do you have to go before the state, because it is a state road, Route 2A?
Correct.
For anything else?
Yep, we have to go to the state for a DOT permit for the curb cut off of Mass Ave, which is 2A.
What about speed limit or lights access from either direction?
No. I mean, are you talking proposed traffic lights, or are you talking about just lights from vehicles?
Cars, vehicles.
Yeah, no, I mean, the most important thing to a DOT permit is going to be sight distance, making sure they have proper sight distance on both sides of the access road, so that they can see the vehicles coming and leaving. That's the most important. We meet all of that criteria. And when we apply for site plan approval with the planning board sends it out for peer review. So we'll have another engineering company reviewing everything and coming up with comments as well, which we'll have to address at that time also.
Thank you.
Okay, just a comment on that road and the parking. Normally, we would require a 20-foot setback. for a parking area.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a few questions, Mr. Chairman.
Hans?
I just have a few questions. So, regarding the two dwellings on one lot, are you confident that the planning board's going to give you the okay to do that?
So we never assume a permit granting authority is going to issue a permit when we apply. However, it's a very common permit to receive from a planning board when you're doing a townhouse development, such as, if you take a look at what was done across the street, Stone Farm, right? Stone Farm is the same type of development. It's townhouse style, more than one building on a lot. And that's exactly the same permit they had to get. So anytime you do a condo development, that's a very common permit to get. And when we went before the Development Review Board, they basically told us, come to the Zoning Board of Appeals first, get the special permit for the townhouse use. And then once you have the special permit for the townhouse use, that gives us the green light to go to the planning board for site plan approval and the additional approval for more than one building on a lot.
Okay, and then an additional question. So am I to understand that the reason you don't need zoning relief is because you're using the Residence A dimensions, the setbacks, the frontage, so forth?
So it becomes a little complicated because we have a zoning line that goes through the property right here.
Yep.
And the zoning line is the Residence A and the limited business residential zoning district line. And so it's a little blurred, so to speak. And so we're going to come under the set of regulations under the planning board, site plan approval. And they're going to review this for good engineering practice is what they're going to do.
And is that because if I recall, looking at your construction documents on the last page of your of the documents you submitted, is it true that in the Residence A and limited business and residential zoning district, the town of Lunenburg doesn't have any doesn't provide any dimensional requirements for lot area, lot frontage, and so forth? So right up in the upper right-hand corner of this document right here, that first paragraph is what I'm referencing. Right there, that paragraph.
So the land shown hereon is graphically situated in the Residence A and limited business residential zoning districts. The zoning ordinance of the town of Lunenburg does not provide minimum dimensional requirements, including but not limited to lot area, lot frontage, lot width, lot front, side, and rear setbacks for the limited business residential zoning district. Well, let's look them up. We'll do it right now.
Because I'm just wondering whether you were using, if in absence of that, there's no requirements, you
Yeah.
fall back to the Residence A.
So it's a situation where when you propose a townhouse development in a residential district, so to speak, and it's a limited business and residential district, it falls back to good engineering practice when you go before the planning board with respect to site plan approval, and you get your peer review engineer involved and you go through the project. Yep.
Are these going to be rentals or are these going to be sale?
Well, that's a good question. My understanding is they're going to be for sale.
Mr. Chair, do we have a rendering of what they look like?
We do. So we started the process of what it's going to look like. And if you can take a look at the colored rendering, we have a box of 52 by 120. And this particular unit is going to be one unit of 4. And this particular unit will fit within the box that we show on our plan. So it's being developed as we speak. And prior to submitting to the planning board, we have to have elevation sections of the front, side, and rear of each of these buildings with conceptual floor plans as well, which they have started to be prepared. And the square footage for each unit is going to be 1560 or less.
What
So
was
the-
the number of bedrooms for each?
So that hasn't been determined yet. That's sort of a discussion point with the planning board always on how many bedrooms each unit. And we're gonna have to have that discussion with them. It's generally between 2 and 3 bedrooms on each unit.
Getting back to my question about the proximity for the parking in the front, would it make sense, or is it possible to switch from having for that unit or building, the 4 units in front, put it on the side where you have a proposed landscape area and have the proposed landscape area in the front? You know what I'm saying? Take this,
So on this particular unit right here, are you talking about putting the parking over here?
yeah, putting the parking over there and the landscaped area in front, which would cut out a lot of the glare to the road and potentially cut out any other problems, and also alleviate the problem with 20 feet necessitated to the road by our zoning.
So we get into the same discussion with all the buffer zones, all the performance standards that we're allowed to do and not do with respect to the buffer zones, the riparian zones. I can certainly look at that at length. But then again, here is the 200-foot outer riparian zone, and we have the parking located outside of that zone. We take it, we put it inside, we're going to be in violation of that 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, just one suggestion. I like the idea. I'm very excited about the stone wall. And this is to go to Jim's question, Jim's comments. I'd like to see the stone wall continuous. So this way, if somebody did something stupid in those parking areas, they couldn't end up on Mass Ave. So I'd rather see the stone wall continuous there to prevent somebody from accidentally putting it in drive when they should be putting it in reverse and something stupid like that.
Good comment.
But that's about it. Other than that, I think this is a great proposal for the use of the lot and the use of the area there. I think it fits well into the area. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, David.
So with respect to the stone wall comment, we can certainly extend the stone wall and have it continuous and have the fill go up to the stone wall, sort of holding it back, sort of a little retaining wall at the same time. That can be done easily. Sure.
Perfect. Like I say, it's just, the thing is we have to protect people from themselves these days.
We do.
So that's
We do.
that's all I'm looking at.
Dave, you would like to put that in as a condition?
I would hope my planning board would have that would be looking at that. I don't know why they had the gap there, but if we have to, I'd be fine with that.
We have a little fill showing. The 540 contour comes right around, and so we have a little gap here. So
Yeah.
we'll take it. We'll make sure that gets incorporated in our final site plan. We'll have a continuous wall, and we'll have the fill go up to it. Not a problem.
Perfect. It actually, I would think it helps too, because now you don't have folks from Mass Ave with the idea of maybe coming, missing the turn or something stupid like that.
Yep.
Yep.
And, just again, we have 4 parking spots here. I could eliminate this one right here and make it a parallel parking right here. That might be a good suggestion as well, if you're so concerned about this offset right here.
Yes, I think that would alleviate probably another 5 feet at least.
Sure. I'm happy to show that on the final plan to the planning board. Sure.
Great suggestion, both, for both of those. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I just have one quick question in regards to the stone wall. I'm seeing at the bottom it says remove existing. Is that just like, is the plan for it to stay but remove existing if needed? Is that what that's saying?
Yeah, so we show a section of the wall removed because of the 540 contour that comes in. So we remove the rocks. We typically take those same stones and we double it up because of the fill in this area. But what we can do is we can put the fill right into the wall, have it act as a retaining wall at the same time. That's not a problem. So we'll make sure this is
Okay.
continuous. We'll take this one parking spot and make a parallel parking spot here. It's just a visitor parking spot anyway. And that'll take this and move it back, give you a greater offset, maintain the wall. And again, we can take a look at whether we want to put a solid fence or a living fence. And so it doesn't matter to us or the applicant which one we do. Whatever works best. Yep.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any follow-up? Okay, if there's no other questions, is there anybody from the public, Patrick?
Let me get that back up. I don't see. Nope, I don't see any hand raised.
Okay,
I do know, Mr. Chairman, I believe, and I could be wrong, but Christopher Zaba, I believe, is in a butter across the street towards the police station, public safety building.
okay,
Just making an observation.
okay. Does he want to speak? Apparently no.
I don't see any evidence of that.
Probably just listening.
Okay. Okay, if there's no public comment, then I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I propose we make a motion to grant the special permit with the one idea of having a continuous stone wall in the front and the movement of that one parking space. But other than that, I'm going to wish them well. Oh, and that they comply and that they pass the scrutiny of every other board in this town.
Yeah, that's
A
yeah.
given, huh?
Yeah, they have to go to all the other boards. The other thing is maybe we should put in there that we're not giving any relief from any of the zoning. Since they're not asking for any.
Okay,
Yeah,
if
this-
you feel
this
that's
applic-
necessary.
Yeah, this application is not a variance application.
Okay, so we have a motion
I will second Dave's motion.
and we have a second. Okay, so that being said, I will call for a vote. Jim
Aye.
and Hans,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
and I am I. So with that, the special permit is granted. And so I have to read the post-decision instructions. The special permit is granted with the contingency that the petitioner complies with all licenses, regulations, statutes, ordinances of any and all applicable local, state, and federal boards or agencies with jurisdiction over the premises. The special permit is subject to a periodic review by the permit granting authority or the enforcement officer to ensure compliance with any conditions. Non-compliance to such conditions may result in revocation of this permit. A copy of the board's decision shall be filed with the town clerk within 14 days. Any party aggrieved by the board decision may appeal to Superior Court 20 days after the decision is filed with the town clerk. After certification by the town clerk that 20 days have elapsed since the decision was filed, you should have it recorded in the Registry of Deeds. No special permit shall take effect until it has been recorded. in a special permit shall lapse within 2 years unless substantial use or construction has commenced. And with that, we wish you well with your townhouses.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Everybody have a great night.
Good
Thank you.
luck.
Good luck.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Lisa, we do have one more hearing coming up in 2 weeks.
Yes, and that's it in the forecast.
There's no way to raise my hand.
And the paperwork's ready if anybody wants to pick it up or have me leave it out.
Call Lisa tomorrow and say,
Oh, it's under
Wait a
rate
minute.
actions.
oh, you found
It's
it?
down here, yeah.
Okay,
Where's your raise your hand?
all right. With that, I would ask
You have
for
to
a
push this
motion.
button right here.
Don't do it now.
No.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
What did Zaba want to say?
What's that?
Zaba just commented he wanted to say something. I guess he said he raised his hand and
Oh,
wasn't able to speak, so we
Really?
should.
Yeah, no, I just, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
yes.
I couldn't figure out how to raise my hands until just now. So I apologize for that. I know you guys have already voted and I'm certainly not opposed to development of housing. But I do have a couple of comments that I'd just like to make the board aware of. I've been here at Mass Ave at this property for over 40 years now. And over that time, I've seen a few ZBA approved projects with contingencies requiring screening of traffic or parking or headlights where vegetative screens were required. Going back to the boatyard project, that never happened. It was put in and it was taken out a few years after the project was built. So something has to, if you guys are going to require this kind of stuff, there needs to be, in my opinion, the board really ought to have some kind of follow-up, some kind of enforcement, because to say that you're going to ask for them to put it in and they do a half-hearted job of putting it in and then never maintain it, or the vegetation dies and they just cut it down, it's not really solving the problem that we're trying to solve by asking for it in the first place. Most recently, the 3-unit property on the opposite end of Mass Ave here over by Sunny Hill Road, they were asked to put in something to screen the headlights from shining across the back of the properties into my living room. Well, that vegetation died soon after they put it in and nothing's been done to replace it. So, it's a great idea, but something more permanent needs to be installed. And it needs to be somehow connected to the continued use if we're gonna grant a special permit. So again, that's what I had to say.
Chris, I would answer that in the form of course, we do a lot of hearings. We do a lot of different things, a lot of different conditions based on what's in front of us. But when I read this down, one of the things I say is all of these things, if we put conditions, they are subject to periodic review by the permit granting authority. So if you were to call the building inspector is our enforcement. If you were to call and tell them that, hey, this was a condition and they didn't do it, or they did it, but they cut it right down the next year, whatever it is, that would bring it to our attention and to the board's attention, and we would do a follow-up on it.
I appreciate the comment. No one likes to be a troublemaker or causing problems. I think if you guys can somehow head this stuff off before you make it a condition, because it's so easy and it happens time and time again. I'm sure this isn't the 2 instances that I'm referring to aren't the only places where this has happened. If you were to really look into it, I think you'd probably see that some of the stuff that you require when it comes to vegetation disappears very quickly. So some, that's really not the only answer or the go-to answer that really should be a criteria for making a decision on solving a problem when it really doesn't long-term or truly solve the problem. And I agree with all the comments that were made about headlights and glare, especially on that corner. Having lived here all those years and heard the accidents in the middle of the night, people travel way too fast around that corner. That the idea to turn the visitor parking space and have it face directly into the westbound traffic on Mass Ave is a mistake. It's better to have it perpendicular to the road than it is pointing directly into the eyes of people coming around that corner. Because with the advent of all the remote starters, we all do it. You start your car up and you let it run for 15 minutes before by the time you get your coffee and do this and do that on your way out the door in the morning. I can just see some problems, in particular with that reorientation of the, unless it were screened somehow with a barricade or a fence that would actually block the headlights from the travel lane.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that, for Mr. Zarba, I would encourage him to go to the planning board when they have the site plan review and bring up these concerns, because they certainly, we can condition it, but they also can condition it to make sure that your voice is heard and that your concerns are met. So I would encourage you to go to, when this goes to the planning board and they're in their process of it, that you share your concerns with them and hopefully they can alleviate, the issues that you're having.
Agreed and understood. And again, these are not, there's nothing personal here. This is just observations from what I've seen happen over the years, and what I can see happening again, unfortunately. So certainly we'll be participating in any of the future meetings that I'm aware of.
And you bring up a good point, because there's no difference between, when I was involved with, solar farms, the developer says, we'll put X amount of shrubs up, and then a year later, 2 years later, they're dead.
Yeah.
And, that was some of the concerns that abutters have raised in certain developments. So really, the onus is probably both on us and the planning board to do a little bit more.
Great. Well, thanks for everybody. And sorry I had to chime in so late to the meeting and keep you from the rest of your business tonight, but I just couldn't figure out which button to push to get my hand raised.
Okay. Well, thank you. We do appreciate your input, though.
Very good.
We're glad that you stayed on and got your comments in.
I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Okay,
If anybody doesn't have anything else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn if there's nothing else.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With that, we're adjourned. Thank you,
guys.
guys.
good night.
All right. See you in 2 weeks, if
Yeah,
not sooner.
2 weeks.
On my birthday.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna end meeting for all of us.
End it all.